Hello everyone, with this video I'm going to demonstrate how to fill out your activity log. So let's scroll down to where we can download it, which is from the Fieldwork Dropbox. You'll notice a few of your files are there, but we're looking for the one called your log sheet, the midterm fieldwork log sheet. So when we click that, it'll open up into Excel. Now, when in doubt, we should probably read the instructions, so let's take a look at that. So you should describe each of the activities in good detail using complete sentences. If you use complete sentences, you're going to better be able to write about in the proper detail about what you did for that particular activities. You should only list activities of your fieldwork on this log and not other assignments such as a resume or actually filling out this form, those types of things. You can use the contract because you'll be working with your fieldwork supervisor on that. So the log sheet's meant to document the hours you spend working with the organization. You should only enter number values in the hours column. They should be in no more than half-hour increments. So in other words, you do not put text in the hours column, just numbers. The more hours you enter for an activity, the more description that is needed. And you should not have an entry over 4 hours without breaking it into smaller activities. That would mean if you spent 6 hours at the site, at the fieldwork site, you should probably break it down into 2 or 3 activities, all within that same date, however, just with different hours. So to get started, you would enter your name, of course. This is important because you enter the number of hours in which you registered for the class. Most of you, it's going to be 3 credit hours or 3 hours here. However, some of you that have been in the system a while could be registering for 2 credit hours, so you would list that as 2 here. And then, depending upon what your advisor has mentioned to you, you could actually enter this up to 5 credit hours. So whatever the hours that you registered for the class, you would enter it in this cell. In this case, I'm going to put 3. So therefore, if I put 3 credit hours in the minimum contact hours, I would divide that by 25 and enter 75 minimum contact hours. This spreadsheet totals all of your hours at the bottom. So you don't want to magic pencil this and end exactly on 75 hours. I would rather you end on 74, getting closer to it than exactly 75, because odds are, depending upon how many hours as you total these up, you're probably going to be in excess of 75 hours by a bit. So let's figure out how to actually enter the information now. So the first thing you need to do is enter a date. And you had an initial conversation with your fieldwork supervisor, and that was 0.5 hours. So that should be 3 to 4 sentences. So as a part of that conversation, you set up a Zoom call for a couple of days later with a group from the organization where you explained what you're about and how you're going to help them. Well, that might be 4 to 5 sentences. And then maybe an hour for the Zoom call. So from then on, you're going to be working on the contract with your fieldwork supervisor. So you would enter the dates and times and the number of hours that you spent, depending upon the number of hours you detailed in that particular entry. Let's say we had a 1.5 hour entry with a conversation with your fieldwork supervisor about the contract. And then we started incrementing. Let's say you spent 2 hours working on some of the objectives of the contract, some of the activities, or the actual products for the fieldwork. So as you can see, these would start mounting up. Let's say you spent 4 hours one day at the actual site of the organization, maybe doing some interviews and such. Well, this is where it's going to be a very detailed description, maybe 6 to 8 statements about those 4 hours. So as you can see, the number of the detail of the description is going to increase mostly as the number of hours increase. So let's say you spent 8 hours working on a presentation. Well, that's probably not realistic. So what you should do is break this up into smaller increments. Let's say we had a date of 1. So what aspect did you work on? So that could be 2 hours, another 2 hours for another aspect, another 2 hours for another aspect. So you see you've broken it down into 4 different activities on the same day. So you still get your 8 hours, but it's rarely that you're going to be spending that much time on a particular document. So you would either spread that out over days or you would spread that out over different activities. So let's see what happens now as we have totaled up our adding our hours and our descriptions. If you look at the very bottom of the spreadsheet, it totals the hours for you. In this case, you've worked 17 hours, and the number of credit hours that you've earned, which is 0.68. So you can see it doesn't take long for these hours to start adding up. Again, you need to be realistic with the description of the activities and the number of hours spent on the activities. I've been at this for about 6 or 8 years, working on these contracts and these activity logs. So I know what realistic is, and I know when you're trying to use the magic pencil. Not that anyone would ever do that, but I will recognize that, and I will state that in my feedback on your midterm activity log. Because what you'll do, you're going to turn this in at midterm, and you can actually turn it in sooner for me to take a check on it, just to make sure everything is realistic and such. What you can think this of is a timesheet that you would present to your employer for your payment. When you think of it in those terms, that's the kind of detail and that's the type of realistic hours that you would put in. But you and I are the only ones that are going to be seeing this activity log. So you would turn this in at least at midterm so that I can give you a good review to making sure that everything's realistic with good descriptions and realistic hours. And then you'll turn it in again at the end of the semester as your final activity log. So that's probably about enough for your activity log.